Welcome to Caught Off Guard. I'm Jessie Zarelli, and this is a show about the moments that hit us out of nowhere and why that's usually where life gets a little interesting. Each episode, we dive into the gut decisions, chaos, intuition, and curveballs that end up rerouting us, often more authentically than any grand plan we had. You'll hear from a range of people who have all been caught off guard in their own way, and how those moments pushed them somewhere they didn't expect but ultimately needed to go. Okay, now let's get started. I'm going to do a quick little intro today because the episode is very long. I yap, which is totally fine because I was in a very free flow space and I came right back to my initial points, which means that ADHD did not win. So kudos to me. Part of why I do these little intros too is because I really just want to share the products and the things that I'm doing or using that I really love that I, hopefully might make your life a little better. Obviously, one of those is TBM. I share the link to that every episode in the show notes, so you can find it there. I have a couple of others I'm going to share today as well. The first brand I want to talk about is Froya. So Froya is a Norwegian skincare company that has no water in any of their products whatsoever. So they're a very thick oil based and they are delightful. They smell incredible. They last a really long time and they're very affordable. They're also in little glass pots, which I really like. When I saw the price initially, because their suggestion is that you buy it each month, I was like, oh damn, $175 a month for skincare is a little steep for me at this point, but I want to use a brand I really like. I want to use a brand I feel good about. I like supporting women-run businesses. I don't really want to use a massive brand. And I also just haven't found skincare that I've been in love with. So I decided I'll just give it a try. If it's a good fit, then that's fine. I feel comfortable committing to this because I very much care about my skin and my health. Long story short, the product lasts way longer than a month. I'm 2 months in and I would say I'm not even halfway done. It'll probably get me through the summer, like most of it, if not all of it. So if you take that price and you divide it by 5 or 6, that's about how much you're spending per month. So it might seem like a lot up front, but it's really going to last you. I also started using less of the product because I realized that I was using way too much, especially earlier in the day. The cream has a little bit of an orange tint to it. And I read one of her emails and she said, if your skin is orange, you're using too much. So that solved that problem very easily. Another brand that I am absolutely hooked on, I am so obsessed with it, is Living Libations. And I have been branching off into some of their other products. I initially started with makeup because I've been wanting to use all natural makeup for as long as I've been wearing makeup pretty much. But the brands used to be really shitty. I think I talked about this in the last episode too. Like they used to just be really cakey and the coloring was off. They wouldn't last. They'd, melt. Now the technology, the way these products are made, they're such better quality, so much higher quality. Living Libations, it just is this is such like a woo-woo thing to say. The whole episode is, so whatever. It is the most high vibe makeup I've ever used. I smile every time I put this makeup on and it makes it worth it. They could charge like 3 times the amount and I'd be like, okay, well, that's what it costs. I mean, I'd probably use less, but I can't see myself switching. It smells so good. The colors are beautiful. They're vibrant. They're made of all natural ingredients. It's again a wonderful woman-run company. It's a Canadian brand. And I also discovered that they sell on TikTok and Amazon. So I was able to try some of theirs because they don't offer free shipping, although it's very easy to get out of the shipping cost, but it was just nice to get something from Amazon immediately. Listen, I want to help the planet. I'm also, an American and kind of a spoiled brat. So I sometimes want things right away. Duality. But I started moving into the not makeup because I wanted to see what their skincare is like. So I have something coming. I got the shampoo and conditioner. I haven't used it yet. It's the sea buckthorn. It's supposed to be really good for like my textured hair, just basically hair that's got, I don't know, something going on with it. And then I got their toothpaste, which I really like. My teeth feel so clean using this toothpaste. And I feel like they're a little bit whiter. I do occasionally whiten my teeth, but I'm never able to do the, 14 days of strips in 14 days. My teeth are so sensitive to that. I have to do one a week. That's how sensitive they are. So the 14 days ends up being 14 weeks for me, which means I just have really white teeth that last a long time. And then I also got from them, this ozonated jewel balm, which has just helped with any like redness or marks on my face, kind of like smoothing them out. Um, yeah, but I couldn't recommend it enough. I applied to be an affiliate with them, so I have a code as well, which hopefully will give you, free shipping and a little bit of a discount. And so I'll share that in the show notes. I've been back on a CrossFit kick a little bit, and I gotta say, I fucking love it. I've taken so many different breaks from CrossFit, but I just feel like such a badass lifting heavy weights. I feel so strong. It's an incredible workout. It feels so good to show up, not have to think about it, hang out, have a good workout, laugh with wonderful people, and then get to leave. Like, what more do you need? I go to Ascension, which is in Fishkill Wappingers. It's my favorite CrossFit gym I've ever been to. The music is really good. The people are great. The vibes are awesome. The workouts are so much fun. I go to a couple of other CrossFit gyms. I do horror around a little bit because I use ClassPass, and there are some other really good ones, but nobody comes close to Ascension. It is one of a kind. I love it so much. I have not been running as much, but I've been trying to get outside and get some nature in. I have also been dialing it back on the caffeine. I mean, to be honest, my sleep has been all over the place this last week because it has been a wild, wild ride of a week. But I've been dialing it back on the caffeine, and I've been drinking cacao basically every morning. And oh, I just feel like it is such a peaceful and intentional start to the day, because a cup of coffee, yes, you can make coffee intentional, of course, but the purpose of coffee is to wake you up so you can get on your day, get more done, and start sooner. Whereas the purpose of cacao is to sit and be present and intentional. And I do that. I journal. Sometimes I meditate. I listen to Chantris Sheba or Seba on Spotify. I can share her music as well, or their music. It's a couple, it's a duo. It's the best. It's so peaceful. I feel so great. And I'm just starting my day with like a little happiness, a little pep in my step. So I think that's all I wanted to share today. The episode is obviously, it's just me again. I decided not to do an interview because it's my podcast and I get to do whatever the hell I want. Also, I just have a lot I want to share. There's a lot going on in the world and I wanted to speak to it. But we'll see how things unfold. Sometimes I'm like, I want to do another little episode. Sometimes I want to do interview with a couple of people and we all have like a nice little chit chat. So we'll see what comes of this, but I'm kind of just riding the wave, and what feels right, I'm acting on while still sticking to the structure that I created, which I think is a really good lesson with creativity. And I very much learned this by going to a conservatory. There's a lot of freedom in structure. It can be very tempting to kind of like live in I'm just being like, the wind is blowing me this way and I'm being inspired that way. That's a wonderful place to be in with the creativity. But in terms of like the structure and showing up, I do think it's important to have a certain foundation. And that's what I'm doing with this podcast. So anyway, enjoy. So I know I screwed up my original plan, which was an interview and a solo episode each month. But since I'm the one who created that rule, I'm also the one who can change that rule. And I'm just being more in the flow and listening to my intuition. And what I feel is that I have a lot more I want to share. I have a lot more I want to say. And there is a list of people I want to interview still. There's some interviews that I need to edit. There are some things that are almost ready to be shared. But for right now, I feel like there is a lot going on in the world energetically, and it feels intense. And if you are, I think, not really on a connected path, if you're not connected to yourself right now, if you feel like you're really lost and stuck, I would imagine that this energy can feel extremely overwhelming. Because the experience I'm having is that things are just happening at their own speed. And obviously that's how life is, right? Life unfolds the way it wants to, despite our timeline, our time frame, our expectations, or our anxieties. which is a great lesson to learn as soon as you possibly can. And then you can reduce the amount of anxiety you have, right? Let go of control and trust. But I'm finding that because I feel like I have this solid core and this solid foundation, this grounding that I'm on, that I've been able to ride the waves and not just survive and get through them, but really, really love them and love those waves. I wanted to talk today about clearing energy and remembering who you are, because this is the experience that I've been having. And so I want to share that. And I don't think I'm alone. I actually know I'm not alone. I've been talking about this with a lot of people in my life about what we feel around us and what we feel in internally and what we feel with each other, like interrelationship. And yeah, I'm hoping that this resonates, or at least it's a little bit of inspiration if you are feeling stuck, if you are feeling overwhelmed by the intensity around you. Um, I spent a lot of the fall and winter diving in deep and excavating. And this was another step in my process. Looking back now, I realize the necessity of it. When I did ayahuasca last August, I thought that ayahuasca was maybe my last big step in the healing process, which sounds so funny, but what did I know? And I thought that because it was such a big, scary, really intense thing to do, that everything would be gravy afterwards. And that has not been the case at all. It's more like ayahuasca opened me up. It cracked me open in this way that allowed me to keep diving in. And yeah, of course, you could go and do more ayahuasca, but the way I see it is ayahuasca is a tool. It's not a thing you have to do over and over and over again. I do see myself doing it again, but I don't see myself doing it until I feel the pull, until I feel the calling. And for right now, I haven't felt that. Although I do feel like it's starting to rumble a little bit. So anyway, I did ayahuasca, which I talk about in my first episode. I walk through it in more detail, the preparation, my experience there, and afterwards. And then afterwards, in the fall and the winter, what that led me to was a microscope into my life and my patterns and my habits. And whoa, baby, that is a very exhausting place to live in, because yeah, I mean, we're so good at avoiding shit, right? Like when things are hard or uncomfortable, we can numb out in a million ways, especially with our phones. It's actually easier to numb out and avoid than it is to deal with your shit. And that's unfortunate. That's not good for humankind, but that is good if you don't want to feel uncomfortable. That's great. You have a million options at your disposal. So I didn't do that. I forced myself to deal with it, which actually is a lesson I learned when I was going through a hard time and then ultimately left my marriage. I had taken a break from drinking. It was supposed to be 3 months, and then it turned into 6 months. And then I said, fuck it, I'll do a year. And then at the year mark, my life was crumbling around me. And I realized that it was not a good time to start drinking alcohol, which so smart. And so it ended up being about a year and a half. And there was like a 7 month period that was the most pain I've ever experienced in my entire life, and the most darkness I've ever felt. And the reason I think that I was able to get through that darkness so rapidly, which I know 6 months sounds horrible, to go through half a year of your life feeling immense amount of pain almost every single day, it feels unbearable. But I knew that if I didn't deal with this, I would carry it around like a fucking backpack the rest of my goddamn life. I knew that. I could see, I was in different types of support groups and therapy groups and communities, and I could see around me all the people who hadn't really dealt with it. And a year, 5, 10 years, 20 years later were still dealing with the repercussions of, this big thing I had to go through. And all I knew was that was not going to be me. I was going to fight tooth and nail to not drag this around. And if that meant making myself miserable in the short term, then so be it. So I think that resilience, not resilience, like that's kind of a quality I developed, but the drive and the like foresight to see what I wanted in my future allowed me to just sit in the shit. So anyway, because I did ayahuasca, I thought, well, I've done a lot of sitting in shit and I have to be done with this. There can't be any more. There can't possibly be any more. Doesn't God love me? That's what I kept thinking. And then in the fall, new layers came up. And the big layer that I had to deal with, which was really scary, was loneliness. I had to deal with my like deep, deep, deep layers of loneliness and being alone and, being single, right? Like, I guess I have lots of community and family and friends, and I make friends everywhere I go, but it's not the same as partnership. And also like the change, right? You can have like a partner and have things transition, but like that change can also just be overwhelming, even when it's really good change. And so I was so scared and doing everything I could to stay as busy as possible. I was constantly running around like crazy. And in the fall, I wasn't quite aware of those patterns. I just knew that it was important for me to not date and force myself to deal with this. And I did. And right around when I allowed myself to be like, okay, I'm single and that's okay, is I ended up meeting someone and dating for a couple of months and had a really lovely experience. And then in the winter, I dealt with even more layers of shit. It was a little bit more of loneliness. It was thinking of the possibility of long-term loneliness, and that was really scary, right? Like, okay, this is not it for me. This relationship is not it. This isn't the one. But what if that means I'm single for 5 more years? And that was terrifying. What ended up happening, and this is kind of another story that maybe I want to make into another episode about it because I think it's really important, but I faced that. I didn't avoid it or numb out. I faced it and I accepted that I could potentially be single for literally years. And dealing with that and facing it allowed me to let go of so much of the fear, right? Because I was seeing it. It wasn't this thing that I was trying to push down. That's when I think things build up and they get really scary, is when we're not facing them. And I'm going to get to this when I talk about clearing energy. But I kind of accepted, like, this is what life could look like and that's okay. And there's a way for me to be really, really happy without having a romantic relationship. And there's a way for me to just pour all of that into myself. And I would say probably starting the beginning of April is when I started to really, really feel that. I started to just pour love into myself. I'm saying all of this because I'm giving a 9-ish month background on how, because I chose to excavate and because I chose to dig deep, I discovered things about myself I never knew were there. I was able to clear the energy, and then I was able to create and allow space for real goodness, real goodness to come in. And so the clearing energy bit, right? Like, when people talk about that, what does that really mean? You could ask a dozen people and they'll all give you a different explanation. But what I would say it means is, first of all, you only want to clear out the things that you don't like, right? So like, you have a drawer and it's filled with a lot of things you love. You don't want to clear that out, but you want to clear out maybe like the junk drawer. When we clear out the stuff that we don't want, it means you get to the root of it and you love it and you accept it and you allow it to come up, and it comes up and it comes up and it comes up and then it leaves. I think where people get stuck or they get scared is they see the layers coming up. Like if we talk about loneliness, for example, just to make it more specific, and I'll just use myself as an example, feeling that loneliness, right? If I were not on a healing journey, if I weren't on this path of healing and growth, which is like very heart led, if I was lonely, I would spend all my time in dating apps. I would go out on like a million dates, consume myself with that. I would never be alone. I'd be with people all the time. I'd be super busy, what have you, because I'd be trying to avoid that feeling of loneliness. But what I have learned, and I mean, really anyone you talk to who has healed deep wounds will tell you that all you have to do is face it. And once you face it, it doesn't have to be there for very long in order to clear. But we think it does. We think that, oh, if I let it come up, it's just going to live here now. And that's actually not true at all. I think it's that a lot of people don't know how to move through it. It starts to come and they get scared and really overwhelmed and they just stop there and they freeze. They don't have the tools, they don't have the support or the community. And so it sits there and they're like, well, I guess this is my new life. But it doesn't have to look like that. I experienced that, and I talk about this in the episode, the first one about ayahuasca. I experienced how we have to sometimes just let something come up one single time to clear. You have to get to the root of it, right? If you go through a breakup and you're really sad and you miss them, it's not just about grieving the sadness of them and the relationship with them ending. It's about grieving why you have that sadness and that loneliness, right? Are there abandonment wounds? Is there rejection in there? Do you feel like you're not good enough? Do you feel like you give away all your power and all of the validation and love and worthiness you feel comes from receiving from somebody else? Those are the things you have to heal and allow to come up. When you do, then you can move through them. It's that we often don't do that because we don't know how, like, well, we're just not taught how to do stuff like this, right? We're taught how to do like really weird shit, like write a check. Actually, you know what? I wasn't even taught how to fill out a check. I had to ask my mom how to fill out a check when I was like 25 years old. Thank God we live in a time where like there really are no checks. I actually went and bought last summer. I had to send in a check for something and I had to go buy checks. And they were like, oh, you can buy a booklet. And I was like, I don't want a booklet of checks. Like, can I just give you $1 and you just give me one check? But anyway, I digress. So we're not taught how to like really do this. And so that's why I think people get scared and they avoid. But man, there's so much to learn in the things that you're avoiding. The things that you're avoiding directly shows you what you actually have to face, right? Because if there was nothing to face, there wouldn't be anything to deal with, right? If you're avoiding relationship woes or your health or your fitness or your things with your career, you're avoiding it because there's something there to deal with. Otherwise, there's nothing to avoid. You would just be doing it. It wouldn't be a big deal. That's why like most people will have an area of their life where they deal with things as they come up and then another where they're avoidant because the stuff that they're avoiding is really scary. It's overwhelming. So yeah, this last year has been a big lesson for me in not really being afraid of dealing with the things that come up. And oh my God, there's just so much power in that. It's also shown me how much I give my power away, right? If you are avoiding something, avoiding it is still energy toward the thing, but it's energy toward the thing in not a very efficient way. If you're dealing with it, there's energy in facing it and processing it and journaling and meditating and talking about it with friends and understanding it and feeling your feelings. If you're avoiding something, it's just this like loose, leaky energy coming out of you that's not being used for any good. It's kind of like worrying. This is actually a great example, like avoidance and worrying. I mean, worrying is a type of avoidance, right? Because you're not doing anything, you're just thinking about it. Anxiety can be another one too. Complaining, right? When people like are locked into complaining, they're not dealing with it. They don't even want a solution. And you offer solutions and they're basically like, hey, can you shut the fuck up? I just want to keep complaining about this. It's very annoying to help people like this. I try not to. I'm always like, okay, cool. I feel like I'm actually really good now at reading when someone just wants to complain and being like, you know what, babe, you do you. If you want to sit in this, like, that's your right. You can sit in it. So anyway, yes, ayahuasca showed me all this stuff to clear. And what's really interesting is when you start to follow the little stones, the pebbles that are laid out, you might go on this path that doesn't look like it's headed in the direction that you want. And that's because the path isn't. The path might not be linear, but it's still putting you, it's that your compass is pointing in the same direction. And so what I mean by that is I did ayahuasca, then it led to all these discoveries. It led to earlier this year me signing up for a parts work weekend workshop. I did it in Beacon. It was a really wonderful experience. And I didn't know what to expect. I didn't even really know why I was doing it. And because I did it, I missed a meeting of my Artist's Way group that I really didn't want to miss. So there was inconvenience to it as well, right? Like it wasn't fitting in with the schedule that I had wanted, but I really felt the pull to do it. Doing that led me to meeting all of these amazing women. Everyone was older than me, and it was so, I think it was very important for me to be around women who are older, like quite a bit older, who are still very actively doing the work. And just because they're, 60, 70 years old doesn't mean they don't stop. And I thought that was so beautiful because, yeah, your life is always worth it. Your life is always worth excavating and understand. I keep using excavating, but like really like diving in and understanding yourself more. You don't get to a certain age where it doesn't matter. And that's made me think about a million things, right? Like if you have a dream, you want to, you're a writer or a filmmaker or an actress, or you feel pulled towards an art, you want to write a book. There's no age in which you shouldn't do that. That's ridiculous. And often I find that people who start things later in life have success much faster because they know themselves so well. They're more confident, they're more self-assured, they have higher self-worth, or maybe they're also really sick of themselves and they don't have the energy to like stop and overthink. They just have to get it done. It can feel like life or death sometimes as an artist when you're kind of avoiding your art and then you start really getting into it and focusing. It can feel like you have to do this no matter what. It's like a need, which it is. If you are an artist or creative person, it is essential to be creating. Even if like your day job is not like that, you need to be pouring your energy into some type of creation. So I did this parts work workshop that led me down a path of doing some more shadow work. And I've talked about this before. I did an episode about it. TBM, to be magnetic. I am a member of this. I will sing it from the rooftops. It is one of the most incredible things I've ever done. I've been a member since October. So what is that? 6 months. Can barely count. 6 months. And yeah, like exactly 6 months. And I have just learned so much about myself. And you get to move at your own pace. There's a lot of space for you to develop an understanding of yourself, either individually or with community, right? Like I started a meetup in the Hudson Valley that's been so lovely. There's also an online community. There's a podcast. There's so many different ways to like bounce your ideas or your process off people, or like I said, just, being at home, journaling, doing the DIs, which are like these meditation hypnosis by yourself. I was unsure of which workshop I wanted to do next in TBM. I wanted it to be one of the workshops. I wanted it to be about money. I was like, I really want to do this about money, but it didn't feel quite right. It felt like it was more for my ego. And then the shadow work workshop kept coming up. It was in the back of my head. And I really didn't want to. I was like, my God, I spent the fall being lonely. I spent the winter being cold and sad and confused and feeling like I was in the winter. I knew I was on the verge of something, but I couldn't see it in my reality. So, and that was like the first time I'd really experienced that. So I was feeling frustrated and very impatient. Like, what is going on? Why do I feel this way? It feels like things are changing, but what is changing exactly? What does it mean? What is it going to look like? And then I did the parts work workshop and I was like, dear God, just like, can we just keep it light? Can we just do something fun? But again, because I was avoiding it, I kept pushing it out of my mind. I went, okay, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. So I dove headfirst into the shadow workshop, and oh my God, I felt like I just shed layers of nonsense in like 2 weeks, 2 weeks or less. It was the end of March into the first week of April, I believe. And I had a lot come up. I had a lot come up from, childhood wounds, fears, scarcity, self-doubt. It was all the stuff that affects every aspect of my life, right? Because if you have a block, it is impacting every aspect of your life. Even if it's a little bit lighter or heavier in some areas, it's still there. And you have no idea how great life can get when you really remove that block entirely. So I did the shadow work, and there's one exercise where they have us reach out to the people in our life that we really trust and love and ask them for feedback on things they think we could work on or improve, or things that they feel like we do that are from a place of self-sabotage or can be irritating. And I mostly got all of the same feedback, that I don't fully embrace myself, that I like push, I try to downplay my intensity because I feel like it's overwhelms people, instead of seeing that it is a gift how intense I am. And the more I just own that, the more magnetic I feel and the more incredible interactions I'm having with people. It's just so funny, right? The thing that we've been taught is bad or wrong or too much is the thing that we should embrace about ourselves. And that's where the motherfucking magic lies. But really, so it was a little bit about the intensity. It was also about uh, softening, right? People were like, oh, you could be more feminine. You could lean into your femininity. You can kind of be like, really in your masculine. And I was thinking about like, how funny is it that all these people are saying this to me? And I had a friend like several months ago who said I had a lot of masculine qualities, and I didn't like that. I didn't like it at all. So I ended up going to this workshop at this it's a used metaphysical bookstore in Kingston called Spiral Mirror. And they're always rotating different workshops they have, but at this time they were doing a lesson each month on one of the 12 laws of the universe. And I went to a couple, but the last one I went to was on the law of gender. And at first I didn't want to go because I was like, well, I know the difference between masculine and feminine. I don't need this. And then I got all this feedback from my friends about, how masculine I am. And I thought, well, maybe I actually do need to embrace more of my femininity, because it wasn't like I didn't feel criticized with them. What they were telling me is, when you are more feminine, it's really beautiful. And you have this really sweet, gentle, playful side with your friends that you don't really have in your dating life. And that kind of made me sad, because that is a part of me I love. And why am I hiding that? And then I realized, like, oh, it was from like trust, right? Because being in your feminine means being in flow and trusting yourself, trusting the other person. And I realized, like, oh yeah, I have a lot of relationship wounds where like trust has been majorly breached. And so there's this like wall up, this like rigidness that I think is self-protection, but it was starting to exhaust me. So I go to the workshop, I have a bunch of takeaways, and then I'm like, you know what? I am now seeing how in the fall, when I was trying to avoid my loneliness, I was keeping myself extremely busy. And I'm always hearing people tell me, oh my God, you're so busy. You're always running around. You're the busiest person I know, blah, 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 blah. And they didn't mean it. No one meant it in a critical way. But I realized that I didn't want that to be a part of my life anymore. It's funny, we have a culture where being really busy and doing a million things all the time, multitasking, is like a feat. Like, oh my God, good for you. Like, I was in a work meeting recently, and they were talking about this woman who was on maternity leave and making jokes about how she basically only took off 2 days, like the day she went into labor, and the next day, and was back on email. And people are laughing, and I'm going, what the heck? Are you kidding me? Like, guys, stop. This is not what we want to be promoting, like in the company, in society, in the world. Like we want to prioritize rest, especially for giving birth, like the most transformational thing you could possibly do in your life. Go from not being a parent to being a parent. Like, yeah, you want to take off more than 2 days. So anyway, it had me just thinking about the ways that I am running around and how I was using that to avoid dealing with this block of loneliness. And so then I decided I actually don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be running around like a lunatic anymore. I want to chill. I want to be more on my feminine. I want to be more in flow. I want to receive. I want to relax a little bit. I want to let people come to me. And in doing that, I feel so much happier. I'm still working in my sleep, but I feel so much happier. I feel so much calmer. And I also feel like I'm allowing all this magic to come because I'm not running from one thing to the next. I'm allowing myself to sit in it. I'm not booking myself where every 15-minute increment like makes or breaks me. It was exhausting. I mean, really, like I had days that were structured so much where I barely had 15 minutes in between things and I'd have to be like rushing to eat. And I was like, this is no life. I don't want to live this way anymore. Time is moving way too fast. I want time to slow down, and I'm going to slow down by getting in flow. So anyway, that was like another thing that came up for me, right? And like doing this like shadow work. Showing me like basically what I was afraid of, which was basically just like sitting and being. So that kind of puts me into like a couple other things I want to talk about, which are time and receiving. There is, I think, a really a common belief that we are afraid of failure. People are afraid to start the project because they're afraid to fail. They're afraid to get into the relationship because they're afraid they'll mess it up. They're afraid to take the leap because they're afraid they'll crash and burn. And I actually don't think that's true at all. And I've heard this before. This comes up in TBM, which was created by Lacey Phillips, and she talks about that. Like it's not a failure issue. It's a receiving issue. And that has never rung more true for me than right now, especially the last couple of weeks in my life. Last week was the craziest week of my entire life. Like my life completely changed last week. And it was entirely unexpected and incredible all at the same time. And I think that what's been happening to me and what I'm experiencing and what I experienced, it has felt fated, like it was meant to happen this way. But I also saw how the reason it was able to happen is because I'm ready for it. And what I mean by that is not that I'm so strong I can like handle the challenge, which yes, there are some challenges coming up, which don't feel like challenges in the way they have before with me. But what I mean is I'm ready to receive. And because of this experience I'm having, I'm really able to see that clearly in a way that I never have before. I've convinced myself for years of my life that I've been afraid of failure. I've been afraid of, completing writing this film, or, finalizing this one woman show, or auditioning for this, or doing this role, or whatever it is, or dating this person. I've convinced myself that I was afraid of failing, falling flat in my face. But that is such a lie. It's such a fucking lie that we tell ourselves because we don't know any better. The real fear was that it would come and I would not be able to hold on to it, that I would not feel worthy or happy or loving enough where I could allow it to come, where I wouldn't trust enough. And if this happened to me 1 year ago, there is no way in hell I would have been able to handle it. And by that, I mean like receive it. I've had to dive deep, excavate, there's that word again, face, process, and let go of things in order to create the space of what I want to be in my life, which is love and trust and joy and happiness. Being able to trust yourself is the single most valuable thing you can have in your life. And I never realized that until now. When you don't have trust, you can't rely on yourself for anything. And you also can't really trust someone else. Not really. It's the same with love. If you don't love yourself, you can't really love someone else. Not that deep. You have to love yourself on a really deep level. You have to love all the parts of yourself in order to really love someone else, right? Because if not, you're just going to see them as the enemy. Anytime they mess up or they trip up, they make a mistake, they say something they didn't mean, or they say something that upsets you, you could spiral because you're seeing them as like the source of the love you need. If you trust yourself and you love yourself, you can love them. You can watch them make a mistake or not do things perfectly and forgive. And yes, obviously, like having an emotional experience and then what happens in the physical world are two different things. You can forgive someone and really see them and choose not to be with them. Like they don't necessarily go hand in hand. They're two separate things, but it makes for a much better life when you're able to forgive and trust and really see someone else. And it's just a reflection of you. So I knew that I wanted more of this, but I don't think I was able to articulate what that meant exactly, like what it meant to really want more goodness. And now I see, oh, I was clearing out energy to remember who I am and let in the energy of what I want to be there. I finally made the through line. I knew we would get there. This is also, I just want to say this too. This is the first episode where I am not really controlling it. My last episode, I didn't edit it, which was very important for me in just my process and my relationship with perfectionism, which I'm realizing more and more has literally no space in art, and it has no space in happiness. It has no space in love either. Like, get that phrase out of your head, because obsessing about perfectionism and focusing on perfectionism is the perfect way to destroy love and joy and creativity and fun. Perfect recipe if that's what you're looking to do. Where was I? But I was able to kind of like let go of that and then, yeah, just allow myself to let in trust on a deeper level and let in love on a deeper level. And now I feel like I'm in this place where I'm at the same frequency as love. And because of that, I'm able to like love so many people around me in this capacity that I didn't really know was possible. Love is such a funny thing too, because you can't measure it, right? You could have a dozen people say to someone, I love you, and it means something different to all of them. The love that I've been feeling lately for the people in my life is this, it's very pure. And it feels like it's from a place of deep acceptance. And that's because I'm developing that for myself. I'm able to love myself on a pure level and feel a lot more self-acceptance. And part of that is, this is the gift I get because I went down and dug. That's how I feel. Like this is the gift that I get to receive, because I went and saw all the parts of me, the shadow parts that I rejected and judged and tried to avoid and pretend weren't there. Because I faced them, I have so much more self-compassion and so much more love. And that's radiating to everyone around me. I had a really incredible acting class yesterday. I mean, it's incredible every week, but yesterday was magical. It was so wild, this class. Like, there were just so many things that happened that were synchronistic, but also surprising and wonderful and so beautiful. And we had someone from the industry come in and chat with us for a minute and watch some of our scenes. And she said, when you walk into the room and you love yourself, you're in love with yourself, casting's going to fall in love with you too. And I feel like I've been understanding that more. And again, that to me is about receiving, right? If you allow yourself to receive your own goodness, then you're allowing yourself to receive that from other people. That's why it's really hard to receive from other people when you're not doing it to yourself. I had a moment yesterday too. My foot is falling asleep, so I'm going to do a really weird squat thing. I had a moment with someone yesterday where I complimented their work, and it was clear that they were having a really hard time just in receiving any compliments. And they said thank you, but I could just read everything going on with them, and it was not great. It was not positive. They were in a place of beating themselves up or not feeling, I'm gonna do little squat pulses now, of not feeling like worthy or good enough, or whatever internal dialogue they were having. It was very obvious on the outside, and it was very obvious that because of that, they couldn't take in what I was saying. And what I was saying was actually making them uncomfortable and kind of triggering them. And I realized, and I went, oh, okay, got it. Yes, I actually complimented them too because I could see they were having a hard time and I thought it would help, but it did the opposite. And like maybe next time if I'm reading that, I can maybe just use a little bit better judgment. So yeah. It's all making me think about our ability to receive, because things really can change like that. Life can change literally overnight. You could have one experience or meet one person and have one conversation that can change the trajectory of your life. Truly. Life is really exactly, no, I'll say this. Life is exactly what you believe it. If you want to know what people believe about their lives, just look at their lives. It is a reflection of what their beliefs are. If they have repetitive problems in some area, that is what they believe. I'll use the dating example because that's, just a thing that has has been relevant to my life, and it's a common topic amongst women in their 30s and such. As someone in their 30s, that's what I'm thinking about, but or noticing at least. But if you meet someone who has a lot of challenges in their dating life, listen to the words they use about dating. They'll talk about how much men suck, how there are no good men out there, how men are so stupid and they're so difficult and like you can't trust them and they're little boys and there's no good men out there and nobody wants a relationship. Their beliefs are being reflected in their life. Their life is a reflection of what they believe in. Then if you go and find someone who's in a lovely relationship, they're not going to say those things. They are not going to say those things. They're going to tell you how wonderful love is and how there are so many good men out there, and that, you're going to meet someone, of course, because they know it. Their life is a reflection of their beliefs. So I always try to remember that too. When I think about like the challenges that are coming up in my life, I go, oh, this is a belief. It's not because there's something wrong with me. It's because I have this belief and my world that's being mirrored back to me over and over and over again. It's like that, like going back to love. If you have some beef with love, right? That's what you're going to deal with in your romantic relationships or your friendships. You're going to deal with those problems because that's what you believe in. I feel like I just said believe a lot. But yeah, there's often this mistrust, I think, in things being sometimes easier and quicker than we imagine. I've been talking about time with a lot of the people in my life lately, and how I saw this video and this woman was saying how time is not moving the ways that it used to. Things that used to take an entire day can take an hour. Things that used to take a week will take a day. You can send an email and a text in a second, send a voice note and catch your friend up on your life and something that you may have had to schedule a phone call to do in like 2 or 3 weeks, right? And I mean, that's just communication stuff. Everything else is moving faster too with technology and AI, etc. The energy around that to me feels so palpable. Like it feels so, like I can really feel it. And the days have started to feel like they are not a day. Like when I say, oh, that was 5 days ago, that almost feels like it's meaningless. And I feel like things are changing so rapidly that whatever happened pre-April, even like the first week of April, just feels completely irrelevant to my life. And I'm not the only one who feels that way. Like you could I think that, we get feedback from the people in our community and our spaces, and we tend to repeat a lot of phrases. And then we repeat those phrases and we believe them as like, God's word or whatever. And then we're in a way living in the past. So someone says, like I experienced this when I was, leaving my marriage and kind of like grieving all of that stuff. There's all these, quote unquote research and quotes and statistics about how long it takes you to deal with X, Y, and Z problem, or how long it takes you to deal with heartbreak or get over a relationship. And some people say, oh, it takes like a quarter of a relationship to grieve, or it can take twice as long, or it can take half as long. And I remember reading these articles and books, and I was like, what are you people talking about? How can you measure that? What that is about is that I forgot what the phrasing is, but they talk about this in TBM. It's again a belief that somebody came up with somewhere at some point, and we all go, oh, okay, I guess that's how it is. Like the mile. They used to think that this math is going to be completely wrong, so please Google this because this is one big lie. But they used to think that a mile couldn't be run faster than like 4.5 minutes or something like that, or couldn't be run faster than like maybe 6 minutes. And then someone did it. Someone broke the time frame. And then once they broke it, all of these people like immediately after broke it and ran even faster. And the takeaway from that was, oh, no one was running faster because no one believed it was possible. And then once they believed, oh, this is a thing that exists in this world, like you can run faster, then all of these people were able to. I think about that with really anything in life. When people say it takes, half the amount of time to grieve a relationship, I was like, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. This is not going to take up years of my life. Absolutely not. I'm going to knock this out real fast. And yeah, there have been like lingering things that come up every now and then, which just do, right? Because we're people and we have life experiences and different triggers and wounds and fears come up. But that could also go back to, some childhood stuff. The way I decided to process that and that relationship not working was not the way anyone I knew around me had processed the end of a relationship in a marriage. And I felt very clear about not listening to literally anyone. And that's really probably the first point where I started to truly listen to my intuition and myself, because I didn't like the answers around me. I didn't like what people were saying. And then I also felt like, you know what? I'm in my 30s. I want to be with someone. I do want a family with someone. I want to share my life with someone. And then there's supposed to be this time frame of like, you meet and then you date for this many months and then you move in together and then you're together and then you get engaged and then you get married and then you have baby. And I was like, who's coming up with these time frames? I also knew that there's always been a part of me too who has seen people who are together for years. And I'm like, how do you not know? But and not everyone has to get married or like take certain stuff. That's not what I mean. But I think sometimes there's this idea we're attached to. We don't trust ourselves. We're not taught to trust ourselves. So we look at the recipe for what life should be, the instruction, not the recipe, the instruction manual for what life should be and how it should work out. And we try to find things that fit that. When really, if I'm being honest, the happiest people I know are doing life exactly the way they want. They are not listening to psychiatrists, psychologists in their books. They're not listening to some guru who says it has to be this long. They're just listening to themselves. And that is the real reason I wanted to start this podcast and why I wanted to interview people, because I wanted to show that everyone at least that I want to highlight here, is doing life their way. That there is no one way to do life. And that is something that is very relevant for me and on my mind a lot as an artist and as an actress, that there is no one path, right? I always use this example. I don't know why. Maybe I was a CPA in my last life, but like if you want to be an accountant, there's a very clear path. You go to school for this amount of time, you study this, you do this, blah, 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 blah. And then from there, maybe you start your own business, maybe you work for a big corporation, you work for a small office, family run, yada, yada, yada. You get to make those decisions. But there's a clear path and what it looks like to get to that position, right? To get to that role. When you're an artist or creative, there's no path. There's suggestions, right? You can get your bachelor's in arts and drama. You could get your MFA. You could go to a conservatory like me. You could take classes. You could say, fuck it. And then just, I don't know, start a YouTube channel with some videos and then they take off and that's your career. Like there literally is no path. And I think we're seeing that happen like as the energy in the world is changing, we're seeing all of these structures break down in this incredible way. But again, kind of like what I said at the beginning, if you're not tuned in, if you don't know how to listen to yourself and you're overwhelmed, that can be really scary seeing all of these structures change. But if you're like on the path, like me, come on over to this side. It's real. The water's warm, I promise. Come on over here and you're on your own path and you might have fears come up, but the love and the trust you feel is so much stronger that it's okay when those fears come up. And also just like as a reminder to me and anyone else who needs it, but a reminder to me is that love is so much more powerful than fear. So you can have fear. You don't have to obsess about eliminating those fears. You just want to dip back into love. Like it's like maybe you have like you've got a little like teacup of fear and then you've got like a bucket of love. You don't have to obsess about emptying the teacup. Just go dive into your bucket of love go dive into your bucket of love, and it's okay that the fear is there. You can allow it to be there and sort of like comfort it. Like, oh, we've got this cute little teacup of fear. That's fine because I'm just like swimming in love and I feel so good. Yes. I think that's all I want to say. Yeah. I get the fear in facing the wounds, but my God, there is so much goodness on the other side of it. We get to create our own lives. We are in control of the lives we're living, first of all. And if you want your life to look a certain way, you might have some things that make it challenging to get there. If you clear that out, if you face it, if you love it, if you process it, you then get to be intentional about what you let into your life. And that's where you get to choose the beliefs you want to have and then allow your life to reflect that. Thanks for listening to Caught Off Guard. If you connected with this episode, or even if you didn't, please subscribe and leave a review, but only a nice one. It'll really help more people find the show. You can find us on Instagram at Caught Off Guard Pod. See you next time.